6時33分発のぞみ102号東京行きです。
My story starts on a bullet train heading north from Osaka. I'm in Japan on holidays. But because my hobby and my job are ultimately the same thing, I tend to spend my holidays differently to most people. I've just arrived at Furukawa. I've been on the Shinkansen for about 6 hours and I'm on my way to try to find some guys that I did a story on back in 2011. They came over from a tsunami-affected area to run in the Gold Coast Marathon. The three young men I was looking for were brothers Soma and Taito and their friend Shota. I wrote about them coming to Australia to run in the Gold Coast Marathon. They had all experienced the terror of the 2011 tsunami firsthand at Minami Sanriku, arguably the area worst hit. After getting off the bullet train, I took a couple of local trains, and because the tsunami had destroyed the track that went to Minami Sanriku, I could only take the train as far as Yanaizu. From there, I took a bus instead. And it wasn't long before I could see some of the scars that the tsunami inflicted. So I've arrived here at Minami Sanriku and there's devastation absolutely everywhere. We rolled in on the bus and just seeing all those familiar pieces of landscape that I saw from the news was just very overwhelming. Went straight into town and I asked some people at some demountable stores that they've set up. I went and asked if they knew any of the boys. Some of them thought maybe. They suggested I went up to the high school. So I went up there as well. Understandably, the deputy principal was reluctant to give out any details of these boys, but he took a copy of the paper and said he'd pass it on. I let him know where I'd be staying in town somewhere tonight, so hopefully he'll come looking for me. If not tomorrow, I plan to hit the streets and try to find some of the boys, even one of them. After walking for miles with my cumbersome camera gear, I finally arrived at a guest house where I managed to secure a lovely room for the night. The next morning, the man sitting next to me at breakfast was fascinated with my quest to find the young men, and he wanted to be part of the adventure. His name was Mr. Yonemori, and he offered to drive me around in his rental car.
いや、これからの予定は子供たちを探しに行きます。
We decided to take the newspaper to some key locations and ask if anyone knew the young men. With no success, I decided to head back to the demountable shops to ask the people I first met if they had heard anything. As it turned out, we were in luck. Yonemori-san, なんか今いいニュースがありましたね。
はい。
何でしょうか。
いや、その弓道部に行ったら会えるかもしれないっていうことで、非常にいい話を聞きました。今から行ってきます。
お願いします。With Mr. Yonemori at the wheel, we went to the high school to see if Soma, the youngest of the three, was practicing archery. So we've just found him. He's actually in the archery club that you can see behind me. So took a photo with him. He's well. He's told us where he lives, so we're going to go up and see if we can find Taito and his family, who live up in some temporary housing up at the junior high school. We then went to the temporary housing estate where we met Taito and his father. Shota also came around. The three young men also piled into Mr. Yonemori's car, and so began our tour of Minami Sanriku. Shota-san, これからどこに行けますか？
自分家アートです。あれ、多分これだな。それ。玄関は多分この辺で、玄関入って、こっち側が茶沼で、そっちの奥が台所で、こっちがなんか廊下になってて、部屋大きい部屋3つあって。
Like Soma and Taito, Shota now lives in temporary housing.
はい、翔太くんち。
Although they now live in a relatively stable setting, they did not have that luxury just after the tsunami hit.
とりあえずここが震災後に避難してた、避難所ですね。はい、
その時はもう全員でこう、まあ、みんなでこう生活しとったみたいな感じ。
そう
家族単位とかじゃなくて。
でもこっちに来たからはまあうちはまあ全員揃ったので、うちは家族でいました。
And this is where they encountered Nobuya, who found the young men bored and restless. He was the one that suggested they run in the marathon. Because most of the flat pieces of land were no-go zones after the tsunami, they were forced to train in the hills.
で、まあ今この走ってるとこが、まあ一応俺らがいつもこう練習してた道ですね。今ちょうどこの走ってる道。はい。まあこの辺で死にかけだな。往復何回か回ってるし、ここは死んだ。まあこんだけなんか激しい道走ってたら、まあ余裕だべなって感じではもう。はい。
Taito then took us to where his home once stood.
そうですね、震災当時は僕がまあここにまあいまして、で震災後に家の中がまあ結構物落ちてきたりとかしてまあ、家の中散らかってたので、まあ、一応ここの外にいて、まあ、ちょっとまあ余震とかもあったので、それでまあ、収まるまで待ってまして、まあ、その時だとうちのばあちゃんと一緒に2人で行ったんですよ。まあまあ、何分かしてから、あっちの方からまあ、波が来たぞって言われて、であっちの方見たらもう波が迫ってきてるような状態で、あとばあちゃんのとこ引っ張って、あっちの向こう側のところまで走ってっていうか、ばあちゃんのところを引っ張っていって、まあ、上の高台のところに上がって、まあ、ギリギリ助かったっていう感じですかね。はい、そんな感じで、はい。
The ruins of Minami Sanriku have become a makeshift shrine and a symbol of the tsunami. People come on pilgrimages from across the country to pay their respects. But local families still don't know if they'll rebuild on the land where their homes once stood. The seawater lapping at the city's feet poses an ever-present danger. And it is here, amongst this uncertainty, that I bid the young men farewell. But I'm sure our paths will cross again.